Lloyd, an assistant mage, separated his life with Ruby, his girlfriend and a top alchemist. He couldn't take anymore the way Ruby mistreated him and always insulted him. Little did she know that he was a stronger magician that could defeat a demon lord. He went to another country and started making friends. There, he met the saint who will become his inspiration for him to be able to forget all the bad memories that Ruby created in his mind. They were also the reason why he was fighting for peace and unity all over their country. A lady is asking Lloyd about the freshness of the ingredients greatly affect the perfection of the alchemy. Lloyd was 19 and working at a drugstore. The lady was his partner and also his lover, the genius alchemist, Ruby. It took him 1 week to get those flowers. He had to stay up all night and bought it back in 3 days. But Ruby just threw it in the trash. The latter was a kind-hearted alchemist that the kingdom is proud of. An impeccable genius who invented numerous magic tools and potions. But from Lloyd's point of view, she's a devil. For her, everything she makes in her lab has to be top quality. Alchemy consists of an alchemist who comes up with a recipe and does the mixing, and as her assistant mage who gathers the material. The success rate of Ruby's recipe idea and compounding is 100%. On the other hand, Lloyd's success rate of finding material is only 40%. One day, an old lady came into their lab. She wanted the material collection rate of the average assistant mage to be 90%. Or more. But the request is not going to be made in time because of him, so Addery's reputation has plummeted again. She asked Lloyd if he knew what he was doing and the poor man had nothing to say but to apologize, which is why she became furious. She yells, throws things at him, and the worst part is calling him useless, goofy and slow. Even if he told her to stop because it was unsightly to break things, she will only say that someone like him can't tell what to do. Society bashes him. Those Ruby's harassment, it's all painful. Lloyd couldn't take the humiliation anymore, so asked her to end everything. He was tired of being her assistant mage, so he decided to leave Addery. But it looks like Ruby didn't get it and wanted him to come back by evening. She also mentioned a dish for dinner, so he yells at her and says that their relationship will end on that day. Ruby didn't take him seriously for the second time. Her words are like a knife piercing his head. He took his item box and slowly walked away. Anywhere is fine, just to get out of that hellhole as fast as he can. Before Lloyd leaves, Ruby throws a letter asking him to buy some Earl Grey on his way home. He was furious because she's going to make him an errand boy even if their relationship had already ended. Later on, he was sitting in a park. He thought it's good to let his emotions out but was confused on where he should go. He felt frustrated because even though he was angry, he still bought the Earl Grey that Ruby asked him. Then he saw a dragon flying around and spreading his big wings without being bound by anyone. Tears ran through his face. He promises himself that he'll be like that dragon. He wants to live freely without being disturbed by anyone. People around him laughed at him when they saw that he was crying. So he stood up and walked away. He was determined to start his life over from scratch. Afterwards, the first thing he did was to travel. When the carriage arrives at his destination, a town where no one knows him is waiting. But the carriage passed a stone and the lovebirds that were also on the carriage look to be caressing each other. They are Mars and Lyra. Lloyd notices them and the atmosphere inside the carriage has turned into a sweet romantic. He, who was reading a book, couldn't help but eavesdrop at the couple. He compares the two to Ruby and himself. They are lovers, but them more like a servant and noble. He remembers Ruby was a lot different back then. She was always the one who could stop him from crying out of hunger. She always says that she will become the best alchemist in their country, for she can live like a noble even though she was raised in an orphanage. She asks Lloyd to be her assistant mage. They focused on their parts and paid no attention to anything else. They desperately pursued their own paths. As a result, Ruby was ordained as a one-of-a-kind aristocrat, Alchemist. After that, she became completely arrogant and his human nature completely rotted away. Anyway, the passengers of the carriage were surprised when it shook them. Lyra heard that the coachman was screaming for some reason. She was surprised when Lloyd asked if a monster appeared. She yells at him, calling him a shady person for interrupting their conversation. He fought back and told not to call someone such things that she never met. So Mars apologizes to him, claiming that the girl usually says out loud what's on her mind. Lloyd didn't mind it and asked to get out to see what happened. When they were about to get out, Lyra was already shaking in terror outside when she saw a huge worm. She claimed that she has no match for the monster. Mars calls her an idiot for giving up before starting a fight. He promised to protect her even if it cost his life. That's why Lloyd dropped his jaw, because Ruby and himself would never have that kind of conversation, telling each other how much they loved them. So he decided to help the couple. He told them that he already fought the monster before, so he will give them advice. He told them that its weak point is its head, so he can easily defeat it by slashing its head with a sword. But the problem is, the monster is so huge. He need to hype himself up and think of something. But he was shocked when Lyra called him an introvert and commented that they can't rely on him. Then the monster starts to attack and the couple ready themselves. But before they could do anything, Lloyd grabbed them and gave the monster an explosion. He did not blow just its head but the monster's whole body. Lloyd seemed confused, so he apologized to the couple because his advice wasn't good. Mars didn't mind and was grateful for his help. Lyra, on the other hand, was shouting. He asks his boyfriend why he is not surprised by Lloyd's attack magic. Lloyd was sweating, thinking what's wrong with his magic. Then his jaw dropped when Lyra called him a cheater neck while his magic was clearly impossible. Later, they continue their journey. Lyra apologized to him. She explained that she was in shock since the magic explosion that Lloyd used was so great. She also said that she was a mage too, but since Lloyd was carrying a staff, she called him an elderly person. Mars was confused since there is no difference and one day, they get old too. After that, Lloyd was shocked when Lyra suddenly knelt before him, asking for a teaching of his magic. She was begging and calling him a master even though Lloyd already told him that he was not that good mage, which is why the latter frees, because all this time he's been told that he is incompetent and has no worth other than being Ruby's childhood friend. Anyway, Lyra wants to become a mage who can cast magic just like Lloyd did. Then she knelt again asking for his forgiveness for saying a lot of rude things to him. So Lloyd told her that people make mistakes when they're young. All he asks from her is that she use her magic responsibly. Lyra had teary eyes because of his words and even called him sensei. She found him amazing and wanted to become the guarantor of his debts. But Lloyd refuses to call him sensei. He was on cloud 9 since it was the first time there's someone who appreciates him and calls him with respect. If the two find out who he really was, do they still appreciate him? So he asks Lyra if she knew Ruby. According to Lyra, she's the greatest alchemist in the country, an amazing person who's made inventions that carved her name into history. Then he asked again if she knew the assistant. It was speechless when Lyra said that she hated Lloyd for being incompetent mage, whose material finding rate is only 40%. He is the reason when Ruby fails to make money. He felt embarrassed and lowered his face. Then he admits that the Lloyd she was hoping to die soon was him. Lyra widened her eyes and suddenly fainted along with Mars. He was crying because up until that moment, he was still an incompetent. Soon the carriage stopped. Lyra made it clear that Lloyd quit being an assistant mage and came to Minerva for a fresh start. She saw how sad he was so she comforted him, telling to be more confident since he was really an amazing mage. The couple also promised that they will help him. So Lloyd felt so lucky to make friends that quickly. It's a great start, but he has to stay strong. The couple was planning for a makeover for him, but it looks like he was in another world thinking what life is waiting for him. 3 weeks have passed since Lloyd left the capital. They arrive at Minerva, the city of life in the South Light region. Though he had a sad life with Ruby, he was looking forward to all the fun and carefree routine. His second life will start in that city. But it looks like he was wrong. When the night came, he never thought his second life would end that fast. Few hours after they arrive at Minerva, they wander around the city. Although it's a 3-week ride by carriage from the capital, yet the city is prosperous. According to Mars, they are focusing a lot on the adventuring business. Lyra added that it's a good foundation for the city's economy. He was surprised when he learned that the couple were adventurers. Lars invited him to join, but he refused since he was not much of an adventurer. Lyra interrupts and says that he was an adventuring type. Adventurers are travelers who make a living out of killing monsters, collecting materials and exploring dungeons. It's quite similar to being an assistant mage. Before he decided, the two invited him for lunch and discussed the details. Later on, the couple form a stance and announced that they will help him with his second life. Lloyd had teary eyes claiming that it was sunlight after the darkness he suffered. A communicator who is willing to consult with people like him. Lyra notices his plate and asks for it to be cheap. He explained that he already ate his meals on the carriage, but Lyra didn't let him eat that food. She even threatens him that he will be stuck in his first life at that rate. Then she showed him a tapioca milk tea like a hot model. She also rated it to over 10 since it was very popular in Minerva. After that, the couple gave him a paper to write down the job he wanted. But Lloyd seemed stunned and didn't know what to write. Ruby's action was still hunting him like a devil and angel fighting on his head, yelling what to write. As a result, he told them that he didn't think of anything. It's like a knife pierced on his head when he heard Lyra say that he seems to give up his dreams for Ruby. The sadness that he felt vanished when they told him he can also write a job he never thought of doing. The couple was shocked when he wrote some jobs, but few of them are still related to Ruby. Lyra accuses him of being a menial person because his reasons for not wanting to be an adventurer are so negative. So she suggested a tool shop since he can use the knowledge he has from material harvesting. He agreed since it was not a bad idea, but his happiness fades when he thinks about Ruby coming to buy alchemy ingredients. She still yells at him to gather her material just like she always does, and the material she needed wanted it for free. He doesn't know what to do. Even if he became a carpenter, Ruby will laugh at him and claim that it's terrible. She will start again to disrespect and look down on him. At the end, he will still apologize though it was not his fault. So Mars suddenly took his hand and invited him to become an adventurer. Lyra agreed, comforting not to be afraid of Ruby. The real shame is not to do the job that he wants. The idea that Ruby would find out is ridiculous. Even if she comes, it's Lloyd's decision whether he returns to the Attery or not. Lloyd was flustered for the couple's kindness. He wanted to become like them. He thought they were right. How long did he live in the past? Lloyd, who's scared of Ruby, is gone. From that moment, he was a new Lloyd who would become an adventurer. As they walk around Minerva, Lloyd feels great without being scared of someone. Though Lyra finds it sounds depressing, Mars sees it as a big step forward. Then, they noticed a big statue of a strange old lady. A statue of the saint from the Emerald Church. An important person in the Emerald Church who received divine messages. Lloyd reminds them that if one calls her an old lady in the neighboring kingdom, they will be executed on the spot. After that, he waved goodbye to the couple. He's not going with them to the inn because he was going to train his skills and prepare for his debut at the Adventurers Guild. Lyra presumes that his character is a bit too much, but Mars was glad that he's feeling better. Night came. While wandering around, he was surprised when he passed by two men who suddenly put a knife on his face, asking for some cash. Lloyd told them that he didn't want his adventuring days to end there. But it looks like the man didn't hear his words since he was just whispering it to himself. Before they could react, they were all shocked when an ice spear suddenly dropped in front of them. Then a lady appeared and told them to stay put. The two men ignored what the lady told and rushed towards her. Lloyd notices that if ever the lady uses her magic again, it will be the end of the two men and the entire town will be covered in ice. So he quickly attacks the two men and slams them on the ground instead of attacking the lady. He told the lady that the ice spear is powerful but difficult to spell, so he suggested that she should use the beginner spells. The lady apologized because it looks like she didn't know the consequences of her action. Lloyd didn't accept her apology. Instead, he was grateful because he was safe. He noticed that the lady was dressed like a priest and used powerful magic, which is why he was curious who the lady was. Then, the lady noticed that his cheeks were bleeding, but he didn't mind since it was just a scratch. But his eyes widened when the lady suddenly held his face and came close to him to heal his scratch. His face turned red since he had never been that close to anyone, even Ruby. Then the lady introduced herself as Iris, so he also told his name. He quickly steps back and asks if she lives around the area. He was surprised when he found that she had actually arrived the same day as he was. Iris smiles at him and it looks like he was hoity-toity because of her bright smile. He also pretended to be an adventurer although he was not, maybe as of that moment, when Iris asked for his work. His confidence is boosted when Iris assumes that he must be a great adventurer. The latter says she was currently unemployed, so they were the same in some way. Since the lady wanted to try the tapioca milk tea, he showed her a shop that had it. On their way, Iris saw a big clock and noticed that it's starting to get late, and her attendant must be waiting for her in the inn. Lloyd thought that Iris had an attendant. She'd like an old-fashioned princess. So he acted as a prince and told not to leave him alone in that dark night. But his smile faded when Ruby popped into his mind, telling him he was not a good piece of trash. But his jaw dropped when Iris bowed to him like a princess and called him a prince. So when Iris asked a favor to help her find her way home, he quickly agrees. However, Lloyd didn't know that the couple was following him. Lyra was worried about him, but when she saw that he looked okay when he met the lady, she was starting to get interested. She already assumes the ending of the two. When an incompetent handsome prince encountered a tragic woman Iris, they fell in love. But since Ruby couldn't forget him, she will find ways to win him back. It's a love triangle. According to Mars, Lyra has been reading too many weird books, so before she could think of worse, he grabbed her hand and he led the way. Lyra becomes furious and yells at him, stating that she was in the middle of replenishing the coupling ingredients. She even threatens him that she will shoot an arrow straight through his head when he does anything stupid. Then she took her bow and arrow and shot it on a building. Mars was shocked because the building was the Adventurers Guild. Lyra didn't mind even if the arrow crashed into something valuable inside, because for her, happiness can be found if people who have the same problem and connect with love. Mars couldn't help but to wish Lloyd good luck. On the other hand, Lloyd never thought that Iris was lost. They noticed the Adventurers Guild. Maybe they can ask for directions. When they entered the guild, they were surprised when a few men were staring at them with murderous intent. They were accused of defiling the portrait of their beloved Saint Sama. Lloyd was terrified when one of the men knew that he was the incompetent mage, the one who's holding back the kingdom's #1 alchemist. His eyes widened because Iris might have misunderstood him as a terrible mage. They yell at him, claiming that he is the bastard who ran away from the capital and is now attacking the guild. So they attack him. Anyway, Lloyd didn't know how to stop them without getting anyone hurt. So he lifts his staff and uses his ensnaring vines. Those vines wrap them up. They were pleading with him to stop since the vines are moving inside their body. Lloyd was in terror because he knew he created an extremely horrible sight. They were yelling, calling for their guild chief, Isolde-san, who seemed not unmoved by the sight. Lloyd asks Iris who she was. The lady replied that she was the knight who happened to be her bodyguard. On the other hand, Isolde asked his men what was happening, but he was shocked when she saw the saint of Holy Roland, Iris Elzerbal Chortsama. The adventurer along with Isolde put their heads down and kneel before Iris. They apologized about the situation earlier. The latter explains that they were unaware that the great Iris was also a member of the group, but were repeatedly disrespected by the guild members. Iris, on the other hand, understands them since she usually wears a mask, so she asked them to raise their faces. Lloyd was confused if putting their heads down was a policy from the guild master. He heard from the adventurer that it was so great being a saint from the neighboring country. They yell at him and says that Iris was a very important person. He assumed that the Holy Maiden is a person who has special power and is called Holy Law Power. However, the holy power has the effect of revitalizing life. It can cultivate a land of abundance, but the places untouched by holy power are called uncultivated territory. It was a demonic realm where dangerous high-ranked demons wreak havoc. An adventurer wanted to say something, but since the vines were in his mouth, it's hard for him to say a word, so he removed it immediately. Lloyd made it clear to them that each country has only one saintess born. So ever since she was born, the whole country has been protecting her. It looks like Iris cheated him because she said she was unemployed. Isolde, on the other hand, was furious at the adventurers. He asks who raises their first against the saint will be demoted to E-rank adventurers. Then she rushed towards them while the adventurers quickly ran away from her. Iris stops Isolde and says that she was no longer a saint anymore, so she asks her not to punish them. She also told the latter that there's a new saintess in her place. Lloyd was confused because she confessed in front of those believers. He didn't know what they were going to do with her. His eyes widened when they suddenly burst into cry. They can't believe that Iris would do such things to help them. For them, that is how the saint should be. Iris was waiting for Isolde's answer. Then she clears his throat and says that she will not punish those adventurers if she says so. Just don't ever lie to her again. Lloyd was happy when he saw how fanatical the adventurers were, although Iris was really telling the truth, that she was no longer a saint. Later on, the commotion ends and it's time for Iris and Lloyd to go home. They didn't notice the time flew past while they're dealing with the adventurers. He was thankful that Iris was there to save the day when things were about to get out of hand. Lloyd apologizes to Iris for getting involved in some strange trouble because of his bad reputation. The lady was surprised because in the first place, it's her fault for getting lost. Iris says that she doesn't think that Lloyd is a bad person. She admits that she enjoyed their conversation, and that is her first memory as Iris, so she asks him not to apologize. Lloyd was sad for her because she was a saint all her life. Lloyd felt like he could understand her feelings of loneliness from when she didn't have a place to belong. He also thanked her for everything, but he was stunned when Iris bowed down and called him Prince Lloyd. Because when she spoke formally, she was making him expect too much. But then he remembered something, so he looked around but didn't find anything. So he asks her to go back to the clock tower and the lady agrees. The lady was shocked when he suddenly carried her and used his physical enhancement to jump onto the tall building's rooftop. They watch the view of the city from the sky. Iris finds it beautiful. Lloyd's eyes widened when he was about to slip. Luckily, Iris already holds his hand to prevent him from falling. Anyway, thanks to the magic light stone that illuminates the entire town. It stores light during the day and emits light at night. Lloyd heard that it was made by a great old goldsmith named Hecate. When he was running around day and night searching for materials, he stopped in that area. It's a moment of healing for him when looking down on the town from the mountain. Iris suddenly turns to her, but he suddenly stops and orders her not to take her eyes off the mountain where the sun was about to rise. The magic stone shines beautifully when it absorbs the morning sun. Out of the blue, Lloyd spoke the truth that he always lived as an assistant mage, but he got sick of everything and ran away to Minerva. In reality, he was a nobody. But in that way, he can show his favorite scenery to his special friend. Iris was surprised, but at the same time, she really appreciated not just the scenery but also his honesty. In that world, she likes to find her own place. So she suddenly grabbed Lloyd's hand and the latter looked like wanted to pass out because of her action. As a result, he fell on the building. Luckily, she was still holding his hands and hardly pulled him up, then slammed him on the roof. She was furious for throwing his life as if he was finding hope. Lloyd, who was listening, apologizes to her and admits that he really wanted to live up to her expectations. He looked worried when Iris didn't reply because at first, he was still a strange person for her. He was delighted when Iris said that he already surpassed her expectations seriously. So he asked her what kind of life Iris wanted in her new place. The latter smiles and sits down because she wants to spend her relaxing days with her new friend. So Lloyd joined her. However, they didn't know that someone was watching them. It was Lyra, who was ecstatic while looking at the roof. She told Mars that her couple bow and arrow was a victory. She turned around and to her shock, her boyfriend was already grabbed by the adventurers along with Isolde. The latter was enraged, asking her to tell her the whole story. Meanwhile, at the royal capital at Ruby's Atelier, she was furious at the auditor because of his news about the request made. She asks him to wait until her assistant mage returns. But the auditor didn't allow her request and demoted her to B rating. She wanted to plead, but the auditor already walked away. She was infuriated because the rank makes it trustworthy. Her popularity was going to eat dirty. She blames Lloyd, who hasn't come back for 3 weeks. Those guys from the Atelier said they'd help her with her request. Instead, they said some nonsense and refused. If Lloyd could bring them back, then there is no way, it's too hard to get those materials. Then she crashes everything around her and blames everything on Lloyd. She dreams of becoming a chronicle class alchemist just like Hecate. She didn't need the idiot Lloyd because she was going to find a new assistant mage. At the Adventurers Guild, Lloyd looks impatient because Lyra and Mars were late. He planned to be an adventurer, but he was anxious when the two were not around. His eyes widened when Isolde approached him while the couple was on both of her hands pulling around. The latter asks him if he was their partner in an unavoidable incident. So he interrogated the couple because he was curious what they did that made them look like they were being beaten. Isolde, who looks impatient, asks him to hear more about the reason he came to the town. Lloyd was shocked at what kind of interrogation Isolde wanted. A while ago, Mars and Lyra were brought into the Grim Guild interrogation room. The latter couldn't speak, so her boyfriend was worried about her. Isolde claimed she had to use the silencing magic on her since she didn't want to fight with a mage. Then she slammed her hands on the table and asked him the reason that made them attack the guild. Lyra was sweating on the side because if Mars exposed she wanted to be a Cupid love, they would think she was crazy. So she made a hand gesture and it looks like her boyfriend understood it. But it looks like Mars didn't get the message and says that she wanted to be a Cupid of love. He explains that Lyra really likes the letter of insulation for the incompetent prince and believes that anything can be solved with love. Mars turns to her and assures that it's okay. He understood what she was trying to say, that if they were honest about her stupid motives, they'd understand. But when Mars starts to tell who the incompetent prince was, Lyra was furious and wanted to stop him because she doesn't want to explain her taste in reference to other people. After that, they looked beaten up, which is why Lloyd was so curious about what kind of interrogation they had. Then Isolde announced that she would let it slide. The couple will undertake requests free of charge 3 days a week for 1 month. She thought that Lloyd, who is said to be an incompetent in the royal capital yet has the ability to incapacitate someone or rank adventurers. There was something about him who is both involved in the accidents from the Saint came without any notice, and the sudden attack at the guild. If he was someone who would do harm to Minerva, she'll have to ask him to leave the city in the name of the guild. Her problem now is how to show Lloyd's true identity. Then she heard Mars asking Lloyd if he didn't become an adventurer yet, which is why she held them when they were about to leave. Since they were always looking for new adventurers, she immediately began the guild test and the couple volunteered to be part. They went to a certain place because he needed to touch the trial crystal. They said it's a hidden treasure that can measure the strength of those who touch it. It's also a great tool for vocational aptitude, personality diagnosis, compatibility, fortune telling, and life advancement. Lloyd suddenly stopped because of the vocational aptitude, where one would be able to know which profession really suited. He was delighted because if he can find a job that suits him, maybe he won't have to force himself to become an adventurer. Then she told Isolde to start the guild test. The latter was determined that the trial crystal will reveal his true nature. They went to the Temple of the Winds, where the dungeon's 1 hour away from Minerva. The crystal is stored on the top floor of the tower. They have to proceed while exterminating the monsters inside the temple. Isolde led the way when out of the blue, Lloyd asked her if she also touched the trial crystal, and if she found her own vocation. Isolde answered him but didn't pay attention because he sensed something. The couple noticed his sudden stop, so he told them that he sensed a monster on the floor below. He is stunned that the other adventurers are being attacked by black spiders and beetles. Lyra announced to the monster to get away while they still can because they, as B-class adventurers, are already there. So the adventurers are safe, but when a little black spider suddenly appeared right in front of her face, she stumbled on the ground in terror. Anyway, Isolde pulled out her sword and asked Lloyd if he knew the main role of the Adventurers Guild. She forms her stance and uses her wind magic sword to slash at those monsters. According to her, even with the power of a saint, monsters keep coming back, so the guild needs to get rid of every single one. Lloyd was surprised when Isolde used a magic swordsman. That he notices a black spider on above him, so he immediately uses his physical enhancement to avoid it. But the beetle made a surprise attack from behind, so he quickly used his lighting magic to counterattack. Isolde saw it all and she found that there was no waste in Lloyd's movement. He was now starting to be suspicious if he was really an incompetent mage. So she asks Lloyd what to do if he encounters a monster much stronger than him. He was stunned when Lloyd explained after dazzling them with 16 consecutive bursts of explosive, he would retreat. Because the 16 bursts of explosion that he mentions is the highest level of magic. Even if it's a lie, she thought that there must be a better way to deal with it because she senses that there is definitely something wrong with Lloyd. Afterwards, they take a short break. Lloyd saw that Lyra had tea, so he asked for some. But he felt like he became a commoner when Lyra burst in anger at him and said that she was a descendant of a noble elf tribe. Of course she had tea in the bag. Then, out of nowhere, Isolde offers them some food. But she too became angry when Mars delightedly asked her if she made it. He didn't mean to offend her, so they immediately ate it before she became more aggressive. The three were happy since the food was delicious. Lloyd seems content since it was his first time eating homemade food in the dungeon. In the past few days, he was eating tons of dried meat. Lyra praised Isolde because the food was delicious. At the same time, she can use both magic and sword and is good at cooking. They were surprised when they found out that Isolde was a noble too. She mentioned that she was the only daughter of the Lord of Minerva, so she had to learn all kinds of skills to live up to the family's name. But when Lloyd asks her if the result of her training reflects her crystal vocation, Isolde suddenly walks away and announces that they are leaving. Later on their way up, Lyra whispers to Lloyd that she feels Isolde is hiding her crystal result. Lloyd smiles at her and says that maybe there are things she doesn't want to let people know, although he was curious as to how it will be actually determined. Lyra seems irritated at his answer. Then he asks Lloyd for a favor. After a while, they reach the top floor of the Temple of the Winds. Isolde shows them the trial crystal. She explained that Lloyd needed to hold it in his hand and ask what he wanted to know, and it would tell him. She made a sample. She asked the crystal her ability. The crystal says that she is an advanced magic and swordsmanship user, an adventurer with an S rank. Lloyd drops his jaw in amazement because the crystal can understand what they are saying. Isolde became angry when Lyra asked the crystal about her vocations. Isolde was trying so hard to stop and cancel the crystal as if she wanted to crush it with her hands. But she couldn't stop it and stated that she had 3 vocations consisting of martial artist, holy knight, and a baker. The couple along with Lloyd were all frozen because they can see the frustration on Isolde's face. Then their faces sweat when they see the statue behind them suddenly make a move. They were in terror when it slams its feet on the ground, which results in their body being thrown. Lloyd thought it was an ornament, but it was a griffon. However, the griffon attacked again, so Isolde jumped to avoid it, but she accidentally released the crystal on her hand. The griffon immediately took and swallowed it. Lloyd widened his eyes and burst into tears when the griffon suddenly flew away. Lloyd wanted the trial crystal so badly, so he chased the griffon and used his lightning magic, but the bird avoided his attack. so he uses his thunder magic and blows the top of the tower. A massive amount of light can be seen, but he was still unlucky since the bird avoided his attack again. He felt sorry when Lyra shouted at him for trying to blow up the tower. Mars asks Isolde why the high-level monsters were there. The latter didn't answer since his question can wait. The important thing is to get the Griffon before it could hurt anyone else. They were searching but couldn't find it because the temple is like a maze if they go off the main route. So Mars shouted for the Griffon not to run. His girlfriend responded that it would be great if the bird responded because in the first place it can't talk. She became furious when Mars shouted again and asked a question regarding Isolde's favorite food. Since the Griffon swallowed the trail crystal, it responded that Isolde's favorite food is fluffy pancakes. They immediately ran and followed the sound, but the place was huge. So Lloyd asks Isolde if the crystal still responded even if he takes off his hand on it. The lady responded that she saw people get their answer after touching it. Then Lloyd asks again another question for them to be able to find the Griffon since it has the crystal. But they didn't get an answer since the question that he asked was already answered. Lloyd was confused because he thought such treasured praises are to be listened to raptly. Isolde exclaimed to him not to mind her and just prioritized human lives. She orders him not to stop asking questions about her. Lloyd and the couple seem puzzled about what questions they would ask because they notice that Isolde looks embarrassed already. Lloyd still has to think, so he asks what kind of magic Isolde is good at, and the crystal responds that it's wind magic. Then what kind of animals is her favorite? Isolde was really frustrated because her secret about her personal favorite was already revealed. Then her eyes widen when out of nowhere, Lyra asked what is her favorite book, her favorite genre, even her favorite coupling. She couldn't handle it anymore, so she shouted at Lyra asking what she was trying to do. On the other hand, no matter how hard they run to catch the Griffon, their distance is still not decreasing. So he told them that he will cast a spell and use his physical enhancement so that they move faster. Isolde was confused if that was really a low-level magic because it was too fast. Even Lyra couldn't turn and she was going to fall since it was the end of the floor. Luckily, Mars grabs her and pushes her to turn around so that she might not fall. He even winked at his girlfriend because it was his promise to her. Even if he died, he would always try his best to save her. But it looks like he couldn't save himself and he was the one who fell from the tower. On the other hand, adventurers on the lowered floor were fighting against monsters. Others reached their limit and felt exhausted. A guy reminds them that it's not what they should say if they want to become an adventurer. Another man told them that they could do it since they were almost at the top. They also added that Lloyd will join their guild soon and his examiner was the guild master. They made fun of Isolde regarding her outfit, but they were all confused when they heard someone was asking regarding Isolde's favorite pajamas. Then they were all in terror when the Griffon suddenly appeared and attacked them. Luckily, before the bird could reach them, Isolde along with Lloyd suddenly grabs them to avoid the attack. The latter was frustrated since he couldn't catch the Griffon. They drop the adventurers on the ground, then Isolde orders them to take all the novices and evacuate. Lloyd couldn't take it, so he planned to kill the Griffon. He used his bullet magic to attack the bird but avoided it again. He cursed. If only he could get the bird out of the tower, he could kill it with one blow. A flash of evil smile formed his face because he was determined to get the trial crystal. Isolde, who was staring at him, saw it. He was curious why he was obsessed with the crystal. She heard that he's dragging down the best alchemist in the kingdom and was an incompetent mage. But in reality, he can use many kinds of magic and has a vast knowledge of monsters. She was wondering why he kept on asking about the crystal and came to Minerva with Iris. From the beginning, Lloyd has been aiming for the crystal. He also took advantage of Iris' weakness and made her power his own. Then she heard Lyra, who was forming her stance to attack, saying something about his boyfriend but couldn't continue because silence magic was used on her. She was surprised when she could negate her own sounds. She was confused because Lyra says she can only hide her presence. The latter thought that Lloyd taught her magic. Her strength is that she has the ability to apply it. She attacks the Griffon using her staff but it dodged it. She was not yet finished because she attacked again and targeted its neck. As a result, the Griffon spit out the train crystal. Lloyd was surprised while Isolde couldn't believe that Lyra actually did it. They both immediately jumped to catch the crystal, but it is Lloyd who first takes a hold of it. Then she immediately asks the crystal regarding his vocation. He even lifted it in the air out of excitement. His smile vanishes when the crystal says that his vocation is to be Ruby's servant. Then a flashback of him being with Ruby pops up in his mind. How she treated him. He burst into tears because he had to do what Ruby says. Everyone was making fun of him. That's why he didn't want to live like that. Isolde was surprised when Lloyd exclaimed that he wanted to change, but why doesn't life let him do it? They both focus on their feelings. As a result, they didn't notice the Griffon was going to attack them. Lyra shouted at Lloyd, that's why Isolde immediately made her move. She blocked with all her strength the feet of the Griffon, who wants to slam Lloyd on the ground. She also says not to worry about the crystal's word because the one who makes the decision is him alone. She also exclaimed that she might have been able to make people smile by baking cakes, but she was proud of choosing her job. Lloyd was shocked at her words. He was given orders to strike the monster with all his might because Isolde was going to push it out of the tower. The latter does her job to push the monster until it reaches the end of the tower. Then it was Lloyd's turn. He uses his thunderstorm magic and strike it to the monster. Later on, Lloyd places the crystal where it belongs and everything goes back to normal. He was surprised when Isolde asked for forgiveness because she suspected him that he'd come to Minerva with some scheme in mind. He suddenly smiles when Isolde told him that he can change in town and she was also rooting for him. Then she asks the crystal about Lloyd's favorite food. It's pot au feu. Then she announces that she will treat him for passing the adventurer test. Afterwards, they made their way out of the tower. The couple who was waiting for them couldn't control their joy when they learned that he passed the adventurer test. Finally, Isolde also told them that they can take quests from the guild next week. Lyra seems excited and asks Lloyd if he would like to do a guild request together with them. The latter seems confused since Mars was still injured. The latter is sure that he can heal in a short amount of time. They were stunned when Isolde cleared her throat and said that she was the guild leader and Sunday is her day off. She blamed her age for forgetting that it was Sunday tomorrow. Lloyd's noticed that she really wants to be invited, so he asks her if she could bake him a cake. When Isolde agreed, Lyra interrupted and told that she was going to bring her a recommended novel. Then the two made an argument along with Mars regarding their situation as elves. Lloyd smiles. He thought that with them, he was going to make it. A few days later, a certain inn in Minerva, a chef prepared some breakfast for Iris. He was surprised when he entered the room and couldn't find Iris. Instead, there is a servant who told him that Iris went to practice early in the morning. She also added that the head maid brought Iris sandwiches, so his breakfast was not needed. The chef felt frustrated because his daily joy was to prepare Iris a refreshing breakfast. According to the servant, Iris seems to have changed a little and became more active since she came back from Minerva. The chef was wondering if it's the influence of that mage that she met there. He stood up and asked Saphiria, the servant, about their story. According to her, the first night they arrived at Minerva, Iris snuck out in the middle of the night. She met a man named Lloyd and became quite close. It looks like she's looking forward to seeing Lloyd again. That's why the man burst into anger, because he didn't know that story until that moment. Saphiria reasoned that Nero, the chef, didn't ask her in the first place. She also said that Lloyd has black hair, tall, and has a plain face. An evil smile forms on his face. He plans to come with Iris on her next escort. He was looking forward to meeting Lloyd. 1 week has passed. Lloyd along with the couple went in the guild. The receptionist was confused because the mission for the collection of 40 goblins and 20 red boars usually takes about 3 days. But they do it fast. Lyra winked at her and said that they are elite adventurers, that's why. Mars opposed her because they were just standing still and looked like Lloyd did the work. Lyra motioned him to stay quiet. Then they saw Isolde carrying a large cake. Her subordinates found out that she likes to make cakes. They want to eat some, so she made enough for everybody. She also gave order to Lloyd that she better complete the quest by himself at least once because he was still taking care of the couple. But it looks like Lloyd was in another world and didn't comply. So she angrily asks him if he doesn't have anything he wants to do. The latter immediately replies that he wants to live a slow life because for him, it's the best thing in life. Isolde became more irritated when the couple told Lloyd that they wanted to eat red boar because they were too clingy to him. At least try to make more time for himself. The next day, Lloyd went to the Great Forest Vid. He accepted a few commissions, and the request to subjugate 100 goblins for 4 nights and 5 days ended early the next day. Then he will take a quick lunch and will try to finish 3 things that day. Ruby's devilish shadow words popped up in his mind, encouraging him to use his recovery magic so he wouldn't need to rest. The stupid Lloyd looks at the beetle's meat, then agrees with it because if he stays all night maybe he can finish 5 things. But his eyes widened when he noticed that the word's suggestions were the exact opposite of the slow life that he wanted. He was speechless when another question came, asking him what he does in his slow life when he doesn't have anything he wants to do. His thought was changing whether to eat the meat or not so that he can go back to work and return to her. Then Isolde's cooking flashed in his mind. He doesn't want to eat it. He will make food for himself and cook pot au feu. That situation, he wins against Ruby. He will decide for himself and not the others. Later on, he prepared what he needed for the dishes. It was the best food back in the orphanage. Ruby's shadow popped up again, who hates pot au feu and prefers curry. He started to cook because it was always his dream to cook it with great ingredients. Then he added water just like Ruby told him in his mind. His eyes widened at the end as it looked like it's not his favorite meal he was cooking. It's Ruby's favorite. Then, he noticed something, so he rushed towards the river. He was shocked to see Iris unconsciously floating in the water, so he immediately pulled her out of the water. Then Iris woke up and felt embarrassed because she was seen in such situations. She was practicing magic at the river near Minerva, but she failed and the river brought her there. Then she remembered her servants. She was sure they would be worried if she didn't return to them. So Lloyd decides that he will bring her home once her clothes dry. Then he invites her for a meal since he cooks his favorite dish. But his eyes widened when he opened the casehole that it was curry, Ruby's favorite, that he cooked. Tears ran down his face because he couldn't even cook his favorite dish. He felt useless. Iris, who looked bewildered at his action, took a taste of his dish. He stops crying when she says that his cooking is very good. He explained to Iris that curry was Ruby's favorite dish. She was his childhood friend who is a mage. She's really an amazing person and wants to be the greatest alchemist in the kingdom. While he was someone who only does as told and helps out Ruby. He was speechless when Iris told him that he was admirable. To succeed in anything, he needs the help of others. Even if they split up, the fact that he helped Ruby remains the same. For her, Lloyd was someone who can help other people, and that's wonderful. The latter stares at her. He was wondering if he could live a slow life with her. That'd be wonderful. Lloyd thought everything would be fine if he got away from Ruby. But coming to Minerva made him realize that if he doesn't change, nothing will change. Then he apologized for talking too much. Iris told him not to worry because she understands him. Because that is also the reason why she was no longer a saint, she didn't change. Then she became sad. On the other hand, they didn't notice that Nero, along with Safiria, were watching them. He burst into anger when he saw that Lloyd was feeding Iris. They were both laughing when Iris told him about Nero and Safiria. Lloyd notices that when she talks about her servants, she seems to have a lot of fun. But someone interrupted them and it was Tururu. So Iris introduced the two to each other. The head maid heard a lot about him and was grateful for his help. The reason Tururu was there is because Safiria forgot something, so she came to deliver. But Safiria along with Nero was nowhere to be found. So Iris explained that they were separated and she came all the way to Lloyd's place all by herself. The saint became terrified when Tururu noticed that she was practicing advanced magic again because she already told her that it was dangerous. There's nothing Iris could say but to apologize. She also added that in order to live without the burden of being a saint, she would like to help everyone. She was terrified and wanted to cry when Tururu asked her if she was going to freeze Safiria and the others again. Lloyd felt pity for Iris, so he asked Tururu to let him teach Iris some magic. Iris was delighted at his suggestion, so she told the head maid that she will be fine. Because Lloyd is worth 100 men. Tururu agrees with him, but if she senses danger, Shell has to stop immediately. Lloyd was happy and told her that there is a wide area downstream. On their way, Nero was still following them. He noticed that Tururu was already with them. He went into the place where Lloyd stopped for a lunch break. He inspected it as he thought Lloyd had bad intentions, but he found nothing but a desk and cooking utensils. He was still irate because it's outrageous to let Iris eat such an amateur dish. Then he turns around and asks Safiria to show him the swordsmanship of a former holy knight. But his jaw dropped when he saw the servant eating the same dish. Her reason is to check if Ifelt has poison or not. Nero was frustrated when the servant told him that she forgot her sword and showed him the radish that he asked for a week ago. He gets confused when Safiria tells him that the curry was so delicious just like his. So he took some to taste because as Iris's chef, he needs to know everything that she ate. His eyes widened because the dish had a harmonious blend of carefully selected ingredients and spices. Even the rice was cooked without any rough grains. It's like an offering to the emperor. In terms of skill, Lloyd is on par with him. Nero notices that the curry is filled with fear, so for him it was an abnormal curry. He assumes that the person who made the curry will definitely bring misfortune to Iris, so they have to get rid of them. On the other hand, they reached the wide area that Lloyd had mentioned. Iris told him that she was still practicing the water dragon spell, the one that summons a dragon made of water. Lloyd showed her that she needed to create a small vortex, then slowly make it bigger. Iris follows his instructions, but Tururu suddenly interrupts them because it looks dangerous for Iris when Lloyd uses his water bullet and releases massive power. But Iris cut her off, claiming it's okay. She seems determined to learn. So Lloyd told Tururu that he will stay and do anything until Iris works it out. He thinks of the time when he was first able to use the water dragon magic. It was when he was in the desert and almost died. But he can't put Iris in that situation. They didn't know that Nero and Safiria were already a meter away from them, watching Lloyd's every move, checking the safety of Iris. In fury, Nero felt sorry for Lloyd because he was going to get rid of him, so he asked Safiria to do it. The latter looks hesitant because Lloyd can make delicious curry. But her mind changes when Nero tells her that he will make her a tastier curry. She forms her stance and does the radish slash. On the other hand, Tururu and Iris were surprised when they saw a massive power of water coming their way, so they called for Lloyd. The latter thought it was a flash flood, but Iris used her dragon water to counterattack. As a result, Nero and Safiria were thrown out when the water fell back on them. Lloyd was delighted at Iris because she can handle floods on her own. Furthermore, the two ended in the river. Nero told Safiria that it's her chance to kill Lloyd, but she can't since she has already eaten the radish. The three were surprised when they saw Nero and Safiria on the river. The two were in terror when Tururu angrily told them to come because Nero made Safiria do something reckless again. The two didn't notice that there was something big behind their back, so they were shocked when they saw a huge legion fish, a high-class monster. Lloyd immediately uses his flame arrow and attacks the monster, but his power didn't stop attacking the two. Lloyd was confused because the monster won't stop attacking until all the swarms are defeated. But if he uses an explosion or lightning magic, everyone will get hurt. Tururu was worried when Iris said she was going to help. Then she uses her ice spear to attack the monster. But it's dangerous because Lloyd was still in the water. Luckily, he avoided those spears, which is why Iris apologized. Her ice spear didn't defeat the monster and it was already approaching her. Iris was terrified and couldn't move. So Tururu suddenly jumps into her to help and avoid the attack. Lloyd, along with the two servants, was horrified because Iris and Tururu might be in danger. But it was the latter who was caught by the monster. Nero and Safiria look crazy attacking those fish, which is why Lloyd became worried about them. Iris saw how the monster took Tururu. Fear and dread was written on her face when she saw Tururu was taken away. But she was determined to help, so she used her water dragon magic that she's been practicing. Although it wasn't successful, she must give it a try. She doesn't want anyone to get hurt, but she doesn't want to sit back and watch either. Tururu was swallowed by the water dragon and it seemed a success and landed on the ground safe. They all rushed to check Tururu. Iris knelt and let Tururu's upper body lie on her lap. The latter finally awakened and was happy and commented that Iris's magic was beautiful. Iris was happy to see Tururu safe at the same time, because she finally learned how to do her dragon water spell. Lloyd looks content because the magic that he mastered to protect himself, Iris learned it to protect her friends. He praised the saint because she was surely amazing. However, he was surprised when Nero approached and thanked him for saving their lives. He also apologized for attacking him out of the blue, then gave Lloyd a Legion fish sashimi on the platter. Then they both turned to Iris and Toru when they call him. The latter was grateful for taking care of Iris. She promised to repay his kindness someday. Lloyd didn't mind it since he was not that good. Nero, on the other hand, looks worried about Iris, so he was about to check on her. He thought Iris will do the same. But he was flustered when Iris rushed towards Lloyd and hugged him. Excitement and embarrassment filled Lloyd because Iris hugged him. As a result, he suddenly jumped and landed on the river. Later on, Nero was cleaning the Legion fish that he caught. According to Iris, it's a high-class monster that does not usually appear near Minerva. The latter seems worried because of what happened earlier and hopes that it was just a coincidence. Lloyd says that he's been in Minerva for a while and took down a sandworm and a griffon who are both high-class, so it was clearly an abnormal situation for Iris, because the holy power of the temple was weakened and it may be easier for the monster to invade. Lloyd said that the griffon appeared in the Temple of Winds. Nero interrupts, contradicting Lloyd since temples originally have the strongest holy power. They are not the places where high-class monsters can appear. Lloyd didn't make an argument and fell into deep thoughts, because for him, there's something wrong at the Temple of Winds. Iris explains to them that there's a function in the shrine, in which a magical barrier can be erected that can repel strong monster using the holy magical energy of the saintess. Each saintess has a duty to maintain the order of the shrine of their respective country. The fact that a high-tier monster showed up at the shrine must mean that something must have gone awry with the Temple of Winds. The temple was beyond that forest. A hole had opened up in the barrier, and it seems like others also realized that something was off. They were all in deep thought when Isolde and Lyra arrived. Lloyd rushed towards them and noticed that they were hurt. According to Isolde, they got attacked by a horse of 3 griffins. They held them off for the time being, but she was sure soon another horde would come after them. Iris was worried because it looks like an intense fight broke out. She asks them if the huge crater that she saw is an aftermath of the fight. But it wasn't. She asks Isolde about the saint that they saw last time off somewhere. The latter explains that they requested an investigation as there was an outbreak of griffins. But since she is currently at the farthest shrine from where they are, so it might take up to 2 weeks before she returns. Iris assumes that there is no help. She suggested that she will go to the depths of the shrine to conduct a cleansing ritual. Toru explains to Lloyd that a ritual is conducted in order to erect a barrier basically. Then she asks Lloyd a favor, if he was willing to escort Iris to the deepest part of the shrine. She was well aware of her liability, but she was sure that Iris would be fine if she was tagged along with him. If Iris was with him, there's nothing to worry about. Nero, on the other hand, didn't like that idea of Lloyd escorting Iris. He looks jealous. Then out of the blue, Safiria asks Lloyd if there are any edible monsters around the area. When Lloyd confirmed that there were beetles, Safiria couldn't control the saliva flowing out of her mouth when he thought how delicious it was. Afterwards, Lloyd and the others went to the shrine. He didn't know that there were stairs leading underground, so the saint explained to him that going up the stairs leads to the entrance of the dungeons, while climbing down leads to the deepest part of the temple. Nero reminds the two to keep their eyes open because monsters probably infiltrated their way. They have to be careful not to get ambushed from behind. Then he calls the attention of Iris and tells her that he can feel an ominous aura coming from the food that Lloyd made. But Iris just laughs at him when out of the blue, Safiria says that the food he makes for Iris is pretty much the same. Iris told Nero that everything is fine. She was sure that Lloyd would help them keep safe on that continent. But Nero refuses and wants to say something, but he can't continue when Lloyd suddenly calls his name to watch out. A monster was above him, but Lloyd quickly used his lightning to defeat it. Unlucky for him because the monster fell on him, so Iris and Lloyd pull him up. It seems Safiria was more concerned if the monster was a beetle and found it hard to eat. They were not yet on with the first monster when the king beetle suddenly appeared. Safiria looked greedy over food, and was drooling over the beetle since it was still food for her no matter the size. So she took out her sword and used her holy slash to attack the beetle. Lloyd was amazed at her because she had incredible sword skills. It's because Safiria was a former holy knight just like Isolde. After the fight, Safiria asked for the beetle leg, so Lloyd brought her one. It's pretty big since it's a king tier. Safiria smelled the leg, and to Lloyd's surprise, she suddenly fell on the ground and lost her will to fight. The latter assumed that she must be starving, and it's not easy to eat a big leg, so he cut it into tiny pieces. Yet, Safiria still didn't move and touch the food. Nero snatched the food at Lloyd. He quickly removes the slime and uses strong spices to get out the smell. When Safiria smelled the food that Nero threw at her mouth, she suddenly woke up and became alive again. She took her sword and challenged monsters to come out. Lloyd has no idea the beetle could be that delicious for Safiria. After a while, Lyra calls them and says that a big horde of high-tier monsters is making their way towards them. She was pleading to erect the barrier as soon as possible, so Iris suggests making their movements in a hurry. They quickly move, but Nero interrupts him and says that he thoroughly enjoyed the food that he cooked earlier, though he's not acknowledging Lloyd until he figures out the secret behind the taste. But it looks like the latter completely misses his points when Lloyd asks if he was particular about the ingredients. Anyway, on their way, they were blocked by a few Minotaur. They were well prepared and quickly attacked them. They all used their magic and power to defeat those Minotaur, and it was a success. After that, they reached the gate that leads to the cleansing ritual room. Lloyd gets it now why Iris was so serious about learning magic. It's because she wanted to fight side by side with both Nero and Safiria. But he was confused when Nero said if it was as simple as that. He turned to the latter but didn't continue his words. They reached the room. Lloyd was confused if it was where they erect the barrier. Then, Iris told everyone that she will start the cleansing ritual, so they have to watch her back. Lloyd was shocked when Safiria rushed towards Iris, who was attacked by a dagger. Luckily, she was on time and avoided any physical injury that Iris might get. Then a loud laugh echoed in the room. It came from a woman with a mask. It seems she was waiting for the Saintess, although Iris was a fake one. She also said that she was paid by a handsome bounty to capture her. Lloyd was surprised that there's a bounty on Iris's head. Nero knew the woman was. She was an assassin dispatched from Roland. So he quickly attacked the woman and threw explosives. The woman avoided it and immediately ran away. When the woman jumped on a high baluster, Lloyd targeted it so the woman fell on the ground. They were all confused if they got the woman since she was not moving. But they were all surprised when another round of dagger rushed towards them. Lucky for Iris because Nero covered her, but the latter was shot on his shoulder. It came from another woman, the same as the first. She says that they just defeated the weakest among her clones, a foolish shadow clone, while Lloyd and the others met a mysterious assassin below the temple. Lyra and Mars were having a fight against monsters. The latter asked her girlfriend to calm down because they were going to die if she didn't. How can she calm down when the temple is being destroyed? If the monsters get in, Minerva will be finished. Adventurers were shocked to see the land eater because it was a high-level monster. Isolde shouted at them, claiming if they didn't stop it, the citizens would be in danger. They have to hold on since Iris and the others were on their way to the cleansing room. Tururu, on the other hand, looks worried because the monster has started to eat the temple. Inside the cleansing room, the woman knew that the saint would come in that place. She introduces herself as Black Crow, an assassin from Roland. Then, Nero and Lloyd were confused because the Black Crow was fighting with her clones. The latter turns to Iris to check the barrier. According to her, a strong force is interfering, so all she can do is to prevent the hole from expanding. Iris assumes that it could be the Black Crow, so she asks if she has the Staff of Holy Destruction. The lady showed off the staff, so her clones became angry at each other again for revealing the staff. Iris and Lloyd were shocked when they found out that they have it. It is a weapon used 200 years ago in the war against demons. The Holy Roland Kingdom should have been strictly safe keeping it. So it means that as long as they don't destroy it, they can't close the hole in the barrier. According to Black Crow, they knew that the saint of that country was away, so that commotion was a trap to lure Iris to come to that place. Iris felt angry for doing those things. There's so many people who can lose their lives. Lloyd turns to Iris and he looks worried for her safeness. Two of the clones were going to attack her from behind. But Safiria was quick to block them and counter-attack the clones. Clones also told her that each one of them was a first-class assassin. They are wondering how long they can keep up. Lloyd decided to use his force shield and leave the fighting to the two, because protection magic can't be used together with offensive magic. When the two heard it, they became wild. They use their holy sword and Nero Slash immediately attacks each and every clone who gets in their way. Other clones hide. They can't believe Safiria's sword and think of her as a monster. Now they were debating who will attack first and what they should use. Later on, Lloyd shouted at the two to be careful when a smoke screen suddenly appeared. The clones use an illusion technique of future and past. It looks like Safiria has caught. She remembers the first time she met Nero, when he gave her a pastry. She ate it, but in reality, she was eating the head of the clones and was hallucinating from the past. No matter how Lloyd called her, she didn't respond. Iris noticed one of the clones was hallucinating as well as Safiria. Then the clone starts the finale. Safiria's heart desire is food and her friends. If she gets caught in a comfortable illusion, it's over for her. It's impossible to wake her up from that endless dream. Iris was worried about that terrifying technique. She calls Lloyd, but it looks like he was also falling for that illusion, so she shouted at him because the protection spell is breaking. Then, she looks at Nero and seems he was also under the illusion. The latter's desire is Iris. He always wanted to cook food for her. Lloyd seems to wake up from his thoughts and notices Nero. He has no other choice. He needs to release the protection magic and fight them by himself. But he was confused because the clones are aiming for Iris, so he didn't know what to do. However, Nero was still under the illusion. He finds Iris beautiful whenever she eats. So in his illusion, he cooks more food for Iris. But the clones notice that he has twisted desire, and they come up with him. Then the illusion breaks. The clones was bewildered because they had never seen such a wicked cook. So they decide to kill Nero even without the illusion. Furthermore, Lloyd looks like he had an idea. So he shouted to Nero to cook something. He was sure that the cooking of the real Nero would reach Safiria. Although confused, the latter wanted to follow what is told, but the problem is the ingredients have already run out. So Lloyd throws to him his magic box where he can find ingredients that he needs. Nero didn't like it, but he must give it a try. Clones who were watching were confused about cooking in the middle of the fight. Nero and Lloyd made a collaboration, the leftover curry topped with omurice. When the smell of the food reaches Safiria, her eyes suddenly wake up and immediately slash her sword against the clones. Luckily, the real Black Crow standing on her back was hit by her sword along with the staff. As a result, the staff of the Holy Destruction break too. The Black Crow was irate and couldn't believe that her illusion could be broken because of her appetite. Although Safiria was deceived by illusionary food, it was the same appetite that saved her. After that, Iris was happy to announce that the barrier was closing. Outside of the temple, Mars wanted to fight more, so Lyra was stopping him since the war was over. She also invited him to have an intimate moment. The monster looks like something was blocked on its throat and immediately walks away. That is the time the couple realize that they are saved. On the other hand, it's time for them to counterattack the Black Crow since everyone was beaten except her. But the Black Crow just laughed at him. He was surprised when he saw the Black Crow absorb the energy of the beaten clones. The Black Crow laughed hard and told them that if her clones didn't work, she would just combine them. Then, she reached supersonic swordsmanship. But Lloyd was not bothered by his supersonic speed, because Lloyd got his super physical enhancement and immediately gave her a hard punch. As a result, she was plastered on the wall of the building. She was confused about that punch that Lloyd gave her. Later on, Isolde will take Black Crow to the capital and put in trial. She was grateful at Iris and the others for protecting the temple wind. Before Black Crow left, Lloyd asked her why there is a bounty on Iris' head. The latter turns to Iris with an angry look and says that the Holy Roland Kingdom's prince wanted to eliminate her for getting in the way of his plan. They were all worried for her. Iris assumes that the prince really intends to start a war. Then she asks Lloyd to accompany her to the capital of that town to stop the invasion of the Roland Kingdom. Lloyd couldn't reply because the capital is where Ruby is. Lloyd, along with Iris and Isolde, immediately took a carriage to the capital. The latter asks the saint why she says that the prince wanted to start a fight. So she explained that Prince Geese often insisted that they should seize the heathen countries to strengthen their army against the demons. She objected, saying that wouldn't be any different from the demons who suddenly invaded 200 years ago. The prince banished her as a fake, and that incident is most likely just the beginning. To prevent Roland invasion, she would like to ask Malzeria to form an alliance with other countries. Isolde told her that she will arrange a meeting with the queen to discuss. However, they noticed that Lloyd looks weird, so they ask if he was alright. He didn't reply, but it looks like it's because he was going back to the capital and had to face Ruby again. After a while, they arrive at Malzeria Kingdom capital. The saint was amused by how extravagant the buildings are. Their Majesty is only interested in elegant things and her vassal dress is as stylish as they can. Then they went to the palace and kneel before their Majesty. When the Majesty saw Isolde, she praised her for well protecting the Temple of Wind. She was surprised by the sudden visit of Iris. She was grateful because nothing serious happened. Then Iris lifted her face up and asked permission to talk to her. She told that Roland is going to start a war with Malzeria. People whisper that Geese have exiled Iris, so they were curious for the current saint. Then they noticed that she was with Lloyd, the assistant mage. Iris heard them say Lloyd is the one with a material collection rate of 40%. Then the queen asked Lloyd who he was, so Iris told them that Lloyd was the one who beat the Black Crow. People were shocked. They couldn't believe that Lloyd beat the infamous Black Crow. For them, he is just an annoying bastard. Iris and Isolde are so irritated by the people commenting hurtful words towards Lloyd. They don't know who the real Lloyd was. When the commotion arises, the queen suddenly shouts to stay quiet. According to her, to have elegance is to have the composure not to be surprised, even something out of the blue. And so is the demeanor one needs to catch a crow. She wanted to see if Lloyd had what it takes to defeat someone as Black Crow. Then they call for Malzeria's most elegant knight commander, Dandelion, Knight of 100 Flowers. The queen gave command. She doesn't care if they challenge him with multiple people. All she is concerned about is beating them and showing them his elegance. Iris dropped her jaw because the knight was wearing an elegant outfit. She calls for Lloyd, but it looks like he was depressed again because of the people. So when the knight rushed towards him to attack, Safiria blocked it. Isolde asked him to come back into his senses and don't mind what the people said. When he looked up to see Isolde, she was confused. So he asks her why she is dressed like a wild animal. But Isolde ignores her and shouts at Safiria to make a fool out of Dandelion with a Gemini blade. She knew she could do it because she heard she was also a holy knight before. When the knight notices that they are arguing because it seems Safiria forgets the teaching of the knights, it's a chance for him. So he uses his dandy Guga Bloom to attack the two. Lloyd drops his jaw because the match is over. At first, he was hesitant when Iris took his hand because she couldn't bear the way they were insulting him. It was time to prove them wrong because he was the hero who saved Minerva. Because of her words, Lloyd gathered his confidence and stood up to rush towards the Dandelion. On the other hand, Ruby stood in the window when she heard the awful noise outside. But she closed the curtain and didn't mind it because it was time for her battle. She was with the top mage of the Magic Association, Crowley Sama. She was grateful to him for coming all the way to the capital royal. Crowley ignored her gratitude because for him, one can get anywhere they want just by riding a carriage. Anyway, the latter was one of the heroes who beat the Demon King 200 years ago and saved the world. It seems he is now living a quiet life in the countryside, but he is still holding the place as the top mage in the Magic Association. With Jim, Ruby could complete as many requests as she wants and earn as much as she wants. It's her big chance to turn things around. So she prepared some homemade cookies for him, because she wants to show her hospitality and increase her favorability. But before she could offer it to Crowley, she stumbled with a bottle on the ground. Luckily, the cookies were still intact and they ate together. She was astonished when Crowley asked her why she put explosive materials in it so the taste is terrible. She notices that the man uses instant protection magic. He also got the ingredients with a single taste. Then she reasoned that she was just trying to have the cookies have a spicy flavor. Then the man stood up so they could gather materials right away. She smiled because she has a lot of overdue requests, so Crowley was a lifesaver. Then she gave him the list. Crowley notices something on the list, a Fleur Einsel, a phantom flower that blooms in the unexplored area. Ruby asks him if he could do it by the end of tomorrow. Crowley complained that the material from Area 1 would take a week to gather, not to mention materials from unexplored areas. Then Ruby showed him a teleportation circle that he could use since he didn't tell him to walk there. It can get him close to his destination. It's the first time Crowley saw a teleportation circle. Ruby was astounded when Crowley said that she was good at her passion and made light of many other things. The unexplored area is an extremely dangerous place where 1,000 knights could die in a single night. She laughs at him because she couldn't believe that 1,000 knights could die there because Lloyd always brought back what she told. To her amazement, Crowley told her that if her statement is true, then Lloyd, her former assistant mage, is someone he has no match for. He was not exaggerating, but Lloyd could be a Chronicle class mage, when in reality he truly was because Lloyd already defeated the Dandelion. She couldn't believe it because Lloyd was a stupid assistant mage for her. Crowley was still talking, but it looks like Ruby didn't pay attention and fell into deep thoughts. The memories of her with Lloyd when they were still in the orphanage, so it was impossible for him to become a Chronicle mage. She forms an evil smile and calls Crowley an incompetent one. She exclaimed that Crowley was making excuses because he can't do it while Lloyd could gather those materials alone. She asked if he was not ashamed to call himself the best even though he was incompetent. Then she notices that Crowley has become serious and a fiery aura is coming out of his body. Crowley says that she cannot overlook comments that disgrace his comrades. She asks Ruby to take back the shameful words that she comments on him. Ruby was too stubborn and clearly repeated that he was an incompetent mage. She was terrified when Crowley couldn't take it anymore and released an explosion on his mouth and fell on the ground. Ruby drops her jaw because they eat a cookie that has explosive plus Crowley's anger. Then an explosion could happen. Guards of the palace suddenly rushed to her room when they heard the explosion. Meanwhile, at the Holy Kingdom of Roland, an old man couldn't believe that Black Crow was defeated. He was furious because he entrusted her with the Staff of Holy Destruction since she was a skilled assassin. But in the end, she was just some Eastern thug. He suddenly stops his words when the prince talks about Iris. All she does is avoid the inevitable. Even though the unification of the Western continent is the true foundation for a true palace. The queen looks happy while taking a bath in front of Lloyd. She also praised him for being more amazing than she thought. She also reminds him to always wear those clothes so he does not look down again. Well, she was taking a bath in front of everyone. Not just in front of Lloyd, in the middle of the palace where everyone could see her naked. Anyway, she announced that she will call for a meeting to work out a plan. She now believes in Iris when Lloyd shows them his skills. Iris interrupts the queen and says that the incident at the Temple of Winds was just a provocation by the Holy Roland Kingdom and asks not to mobilize her army. The queen gets it, that she doesn't want the citizens to get involved. Iris continues that they will cooperate with their allied nations to only put restrictions on Roland, though it will still put some strain on the citizens. Although Lloyd was confused, he didn't interrupt the conversations. Then the queen got up on the tub with just a piece of cloth wearing and exposed her voluptuous body. She says that they can't settle the matter unless they stop Prince Geese. Iris should understand that better than anyone. But the latter remained silent. Afterwards, they all left the palace. Isolde asks the saint to use her family's vacation home for the time being. But Lloyd was still confused because it seems like Iris was worried about the prince all the time. Then, Turu asked the saint if they could have a vacation now that they accomplished their goal. Lloyd was surprised when Iris agreed and Turu entrusted the saint with his protection. Then they immediately leave them. Isolde announced that she was going to drop by the Adventurers Guild, then he ordered Iris and Lloyd to go sightseeing. Later on, the two go for a walk. It looks like Lloyd didn't know what to do or what topic could start a conversation. Out of the blue, he asks her if the prince is a scary guy, but it seems it's the worst topic he could have picked. Iris replied that rather than scary, the prince is desperate. He wanted to bring peace to that world. In that aspect, they were like-minded, but their way of thinking was different. Then, she remembered their conversation. The prince wanted to invade countries to prepare for the demon invasion. But she disagrees that they wouldn't be any better than the demons if they started to invade other nations. Because for her, even if they untie the world and shape it as they wish, it will still result in countless meaningless deaths. Then the prince exclaimed that if they could be sure the saint's barrier alone could prevent an invasion, then they wouldn't go that far. He even mentions that her holy power is not enough. Lloyd felt sorry for asking, so he offered his head to be beheaded. He thought that Iris must have gone through a lot. Then they kept on wandering around. Lloyd didn't pay attention to his surroundings until they reached a place. Iris says that it's a magical traveling fair. It came to her hometown once when she was still a child. She became excited when she saw the roller coaster that she wanted to ride. Their ride resembles a dragon, which is why it reminds Lloyd of the time when he held onto a dragon for a whole day while trying to defeat it. After that, he noticed Iris looked pale, so he asked if she had motion sickness because of the ride. The reason, according to Iris, is just have been really intense lately. Sometimes when you're in a constant intense situation, you grow numb to other things. Then they saw another ride. He was curious how it was moving. The two were surprised when they saw dandelions. It's because of him the ride was moving. They walked towards him and greeted him. According to the knight, he does it for a workout while watching those children smile. It was hitting two birds with one stone. Lloyd drops his jaw when a bunch of children notice him as the incompetent Lloyd. So the knight grabbed the child and lifted up. He told the child not to say such things because he was stronger than him. Then those children start to ask Lloyd how he won, so the latter tells them what happened. Then Dandelion's work for that day was over, so he left Lloyd and the children. The latter didn't want to be left behind because those children started to play with him. But it looks like there's nothing he can do, so he plays with them until he looks exhausted. Later on, they head back to the capital. On their way, Lloyd asks the Saint if they can manage to stop the war. Does she want to go back to being Roland's Saint or want to live happily somewhere else? Although she was surprised, Iris told him a little about her past life. When she was born, the bishop thought she had a talent for holy magic, so she was placed in an educational institution as a saint candidate. There are several people who have an aptitude for it. Wielding holy power is synonymous with being in charge of the country's barrier, an enormous responsibility. History, prayers, and politics. Only someone who can do all these perfectly will be able to undergo the ceremony to become a saint. She worked so hard to become a saint because there were people she wanted to protect. Her mother arranged goods at the market. Her brothers worked hard in the field, and her knight father who sometimes came to her school to check on her. The people who grew up in the harsh land of Roland, they are all nice people. In the end, because her feud with the prince continued to get worse, she vanished. But her comrades who followed, saved and believed that she was in the right. It would be hard to return to being a saint, but she wants to live a life with the people who are important to her. Because she can't handle being alone. Lloyd hit hard with Iris's last word. His hardships to deal with Ruby will never compare to Iris. He was teary-eyed, so he promised her that he will do anything to make her happy. Iris was so grateful to him. Night came and they arrived at their place. Iris was surprised when Nero, along with Cytherea and Turu, prepared a small feast to surprise her for her hard work. Nero claims he prepared those Malzeria-style full-course meals, but Cytherea contradicts him, saying that everyone helped out, not just him. And so they start to argue again. Lloyd was happy to see them happy, yet always argue over something. He smiled when Iris told him when everything is over, they will celebrate again. Because when it happens, it will be a fresh start for her. Then they start the party. On the other hand, guards were talking about Ruby. They heard that she has been arrested because her 8th rank had hit rock bottom recently. She was in desperate need of money and attacked a famous mage. Ruby, who was sitting in the jail, heard them. She was furious because they have spread baseless rumors. She was confused as to why no one tried to stand for her when she was in Alchemia, an aristocrat. Her fury arose when someone threw something on her head. But she was speechless when she saw who did it, because they were all the same. They were black crows who were on the other side of the jail. The latter asks if she was Ruby, the top alchemist in the kingdom. They invite her to come with them to Roland, but she was bewildered when the clones started to talk simultaneously and argue. One of the clones urges her to come with them, but she finds it ridiculous because they can't even get out in the first place. To her surprise, one of them opened the jail while the key was spinning on its hand. Ruby was speechless when clones talked to each other and said that even if they escape, it's a long way until they reach the border. So she told them that she has a teleportation circle in her 8th, and they can use it. That is, if they can use magic. It's not a problem for the crows, so they ask where her 8th is. Ruby finds them as a scapegoat. She will follow them and pretend that she got dragged in their plan. Then the incidents with Crowley will also turn to false accusations. But it's not over yet, but they managed to escape. Morning came. Nero and Loud were preparing breakfast when a butler came and asked them to gather at the reception hall. The two followed him and were curious on what could it be that early in the morning. When Lloyd entered the room, he greeted everyone and announced that the breakfast was not yet ready. But the people inside the room were all serious and didn't bother to greet him back. The Queen said that someone important in the royal capital was nearly killed. The suspect of the case escaped together with the Black Crow. Moreover, the garrison troops at the border were attacked. Roland has begun its invasions on Malzeria. Lloyd didn't realize the prince's resolve until the Black Crow came, and that's the time he left Roland. Everything Iris has done up until that moment has only made things worse. The latter decide to go back to Roland to appeal once more to the prince. No matter what it takes, she has to stop them. Her servant refuses because they are worried that she can't return since the army is already at the border. It will be harder for them, but Iris was determined to go alone. Then she thanked everyone and was about to leave. Lloyd was panicking because it was not safe for her to go on Roland. He remembers the teleportation circle at Ruby's 8th. But if they go to that, he will have to confront Ruby. But he has to tell them his idea no matter what. He was sweating and having a hard time talking. Then he collapsed on the ground. After a while, Turu told everyone that Lloyd fainted because of anxiety. He was too scared to finish what he was saying and pass out. They were all curious when Lloyd whispered that he had an idea. Iris was worried because her impatience must have caused Lloyd to push himself too hard. She wishes she could read his mind. The Queen heard her, so she asked her butler to bring her the Enter One's Mind, an elegant tool they seized from the demons. It has actually another name, but since it was not elegant, the Queen changed it. According to the Queen, if one sleeps next to someone wearing that thing, they can enter their mind. Nero assumes that it's kinda like the hypnosis spell that the Black Crow uses. Anyway, the Queen doesn't know what will happen, but they can use it to read Lloyd's mind if they don't mind. Iris immediately says that she will do it. Even Nero and Turu wanted to do it, but Isolde stopped them and told them to stay behind, because if they don't wake up, they will have to save them. Then Iris lay on the bed. Furthermore, Lloyd wakes up at the 8th. His eyes widened because as far as he could remember, he was trying to tell everyone about the teleportation circle. He was horrified when out of nowhere, Ruby appeared, talking about how slow he was and other ridiculous things about him and his ancestors. He was frightened and started to cry. He apologized and admitted that he was worthless. Ruby was surprised when out of nowhere, Iris also appeared. She introduces herself as Lloyd's friend. She questioned Ruby for saying such a terrible thing about Lloyd where he was an amazing mage in the first place. Ruby looks like a demon, yelling at her to shut up. She also said that Lloyd's a failure for gathering a 40% of rate. It suits him to be treated as her slave. Then she starts to beat Lloyd. Iris became furious, so she ordered Ruby to release Lloyd. Then she used her water dragon to attack Ruby. Iris did it, but Ruby immediately gained her strength and struck her back to beat. Iris thought that she couldn't defeat Ruby with her brute force. She became confused about what to do. Then Lloyd shouted that despite his friend's advice, he was still scared of Ruby, so he asked Iris to leave him behind. Iris refuses to leave him. She told him to ask for help when he is faced with an insurmountable wall. Don't blame himself, instead rely on his friends. Lloyd always helps him, so it's time for her to help him too. She offered her hand for him to take. When their hands met, Iris became a giant 10 times larger than Ruby. At last, the latter felt scared when Iris easily grabbed her. Then she put her in a little bottle so that she will not bother Lloyd again. Finally, Lloyd was free from his shell and nightmare. Iris was so happy that she could be of help to him. Then Lloyd finally awakens with Iris on her side. He immediately told them that there's a teleportation circle in the 8th layer. So he led them and went to the 8th layer. On their way, Iris asked him if he was alright. He replied that it's getting harder to hear Ruby's voice, but he feels like he can ask her to use the magic circle. They arrive at Ruby's 8th layer, so Lloyd quickly knocks on her door. To their surprise, a guard opens the door asking who they are since the place is off limits for the general public. The guard notices Isolde, who is a guild leader, when the latter asks what happened. The guard lets them in and says that the owner of the house has attempted murder. They are currently investigating. Iris was confused about what Ruby could do for being accused. Lloyd asks them to leave, so Isolde asks the permission of the guard that they will use the magic circle. Before they do, Lloyd asks them if they use the magic circle, they can get his gathering spot in Roland. Isolde looks worried and asks him what he will do if he meets the prince and if he acts recklessly. If he has any plan. Lloyd told the two that he will tell them his plan after they teleport. They were about to leave, but Nero held him up. He was holding a large bag of snacks to take with him. Then he put it in his item box in case they might get hungry. Lloyd asks Isolde if she would come. The latter immediately responded that she will go since she already gave instruction to her subordinates during her absence. He can't overlook the crisis befalling Minerva. Safiria was also coming with them, while Tururu and Nero wanted to, but they didn't want to hold them back. Tururu asks Iris to be careful, although in the past, she will stop her since it's dangerous. After that, Lloyd asks them to line up since he will send them one by one so that their bodies won't get mixed up. Teleportation is quite difficult. Lloyd can't wait to meet Prince Geese. On the other hand, Ruby seems frustrated because of the coldness of the place, so she asks the Black Crow if they are not still there yet. The latter simply says that they are almost there. Then Ruby saw some soldiers on their way, so she shouted at them to get their attention. Then they noticed Black Crow. To her surprise, the soldiers handcuffed them. She shouted at them, asking what they did. The soldiers yell at her too, telling she's not allowed to speak without permission. She was sentenced to death anyway. Ruby was frozen in shock. Ruby and Black Crow finally arrive at the capital. It's been a week since they were captured. When the Black Crow met the princes, he quickly admitted his failure, but he brought back someone of value. The prince forgave him, but Ruby on the side was furious for following him. Meanwhile, at the Roland Castle audience room, a soldier reported that the attack on the Melzeria front is progressing well. Ruby, who's standing on the side, was surprised when he saw the prince. A lady beside the prince says that the prince is very concerned about the current situation and hopes to settle it as soon as possible. Geese says that the unification of the continent was the wish of the king who was assassinated by the demons. When he fulfills that dream, he will succeed to the throne. The lady holds his hand and claims that the prince is the only one who is worthy of standing above others. She also said that Ezekiel will assist Geese's great undertaking. However, the Black Crow was so nervous and was about to pee, so Ruby shouted at him to shut up. Anyway, it seems the lady beside her was the new saint of Roland. He was grateful for her understanding, unlike Iris, who always told him not to start a war. Don't increase the farmers' taxes and employ the best cook in the city. Ezekiel had no idea how much Iris made him suffer, swinging around her authority as a saint. To calm the prince, Ezekiel told him that it was all in the past and she was there now. Ruby was speechless while staring at the two who looked like lovebirds. Then, the men proceed to the next report and state that while they were patrolling, they captured Black Crow. The latter immediately says that the assassination on Iris failed, but he brought someone who will surely be useful. Geese told the Black Crow to shut up. He was incompetent and had no use for him or the little girl beside him. He announces that they will both get the death penalty. Then the soldiers grab them. Ruby was furious, asking them to let her go. When she says that she is Melzeria's best alchemist, Ezekiel stops them. She asks to stop taking lives and entrusts the two to her. Ruby seems bewildered by her actions. Later, the two are free. The soldiers told them to be thankful that the saint has a compassionate heart. Although they escaped the death penalty, they were still in jail along with some people. Black Crow asks them who they are, so they introduce themselves one by one. An old man was a bishop who followed Iris. A clown was sentenced because he offended the prince, and an old lady who skinned and killed a young woman. Ruby asks the old man if he knows what the saint will make them do. The old man didn't know. Ezekiel was a saint from another country that was invaded and destroyed by demons, but Roland welcomed her, and she became the new saint. Ruby was speechless when Ezekiel suddenly appeared with a monster on her back. The saint told them that the child behind her is her pet. Then she asked soldiers to hand out the papers to everyone. She also added that she has an interest in alchemy and wants their slaves' assistance. Ruby read the paper and noticed that it was material gathering. Ruby was about to react, but someone shouted that it's impossible. The lady complained that most of the places were unexplored areas. She knew because she was an alchemist. She accused the saint that she was basically telling them to die. Ruby was stunned when Ezekiel slammed the lady on the floor. She claims that there is a misunderstanding because what she told them is not an order, it's their fate. Then the saint became a monster, telling that their fate is in her hands. If she told them to jump into lava, they would jump with a smile. They will be executed immediately if they return before collecting everything. So Ruby, along with the other prisoners, gather their bags and start to walk until they reach a point that leads in the unexplored area where the holy power couldn't reach. Ruby was enraged and confronted the Black Crow, because he says that if she follows him, it would work out somehow. The latter replied that the prince likes Ezekiel because she is gentler than the previous. Who would have thought that she'd abuse her power? He also suspected that Ezekiel might be the one who drove the previous saint out. They have no choice because if they go against her will, they will die. They planned to work together to survive. Little did they know that something was already watching them. They were all surprised when a Chihuahua Barus rushed towards them. They immediately run to save their lives. One of them saw a cave and asked them to run into it. But the person was wrong. It's not a cave because it's a dark Alron. Some of them were caught. Luckily, the Black Crow and Ruby survived. The latter asks the Black Crow to do something, so the Black Crow uses his clone technique. But those clones were just eaten by Chihuahuas. The Black Crow has strategy. He creates clones until the Chihuahua gets choked. But the scene looks like it came straight from hell because all the clones were all eaten. They keep on running. Ruby was horrified when her legs got stuck in the mud and the Chihuahua was too close at her. She can see the sharp fangs of the monster. She was horrified and didn't know if she could survive or was going to die. She remembers Lloyd and the trouble that she causes him. She felt sorry for him. Then Crowley's word appeared in her mind, that she could become an alchemist comparable to Lloyd. She gathered her strength and pierced her dagger in the mouth of the monster who was about to eat her. She became wild, claiming if Lloyd can get the material, she can do it too. She did it. Chihuahua's fangs were one of the materials they needed. Although exhausted, she was happy. She needed to take a bath, but it looks like it won't be possible for a while. On the other hand, Lloyd along with the others safely arrive in Roland. The magic circle really saved them, to be able to cross the border in an instant. Isolde seems anxious about her looks, if she looks normal. Iris asks Lloyd about his plan, then he shows them his item box. They will put the prince inside and bring him back. They find his plan a bizarre one because they were not sure if he can put someone in it. Lloyd told everyone that the item box is safe because he already uses it instead of a tent. It's surprisingly comfortable. Item boxes are master grade magic and only a handful can use them. No one would ever think of putting someone in there and kidnap them. They will bring the prince to Malzeria for a peace negotiation. That's his idea. Safiria interrupted and made it clear that his idea is a negotiation material that no one but him can gather. But why didn't he explain his idea directly earlier? Because he made them confused first. Aside from Lloyd, they were all originally from Roland, so Isolde told him that they will take the lead. Then the three ladies suddenly shout that they're all looking forward to working with one another. Although clueless and looks weird, Lloyd copies their gesture. Then they start their journey. They didn't know that someone was watching them. A monster and the new saint, Ezekiel. They defeat a magical creature on their way. Safiria was curious if its meat was tasty, but it had no meat since it was a puppet controlled by a magician. Iris became silent. She finally came back to Roland. So she told everyone that the prince resides inside the cathedral. The prince was yelling because intruders were inside the castle. Ezekiel's familiar was killed while Iris and the others are back. Ezekiel didn't pay attention to him. She was furious because she watched as Iris and the others killed her familiar. Then she gave orders to the soldiers not to leave a single one of them alive. She finds Iris as a woman who just won't quit, that's why she was irate about her. Meanwhile, it seems it'll be difficult for Lloyd and the others to enter through the front when they see numerous soldiers guarding the place. So Lloyd told them that he will take care of them using his explosion. Iris immediately stops him from using it. Lloyd reasoned that they can't get through if they don't defeat those soldiers. Isolde interrupts them and explains that not everyone is as tough as Dandelions or Black Crow. A normal person being hit by his magic would kill them 100%. Lloyd drops his jaw because he had no idea. So he suggested his plant magic, but the problem with that is they will be easily discovered. Isolde told him not to use magic on people if he can't hold back. Iris thought that Lloyd used to gather materials in unexplored areas, which is why his common sense is different from theirs. Anyway, they're not there to start a war but to negotiate. So Isolde reminds them not to get caught. To her confusion, she noticed Safiria was still kneeling on the ground and gathering some food. She became furious because Safiria might get caught because the boxes of food were located right in front of the guards. So she rushed towards her to stop her. The latter reasoned that their food supplies have run out even though Nero sends them a large bag of snacks on their way. Lloyd became curious, so he went to the two and asked about the place. They replied that they are in a food storage where they keep their leftovers. Isolde asks them to leave before they get caught. But Iris stops her when they notice two soldiers walking by. It looks like they had an idea how to sneak to the palace. Isolde and Safiria jump and beat the 2 soldiers. After that, they snatch the armor of the 2 soldiers and pretend to be one of them. Lloyd and the others wore it so that they could enter the palace smoothly. Lloyd's companion reminds him not to do anything rash that might cause them to get caught. On their way, someone calls at them asking about their post. The 2 became nervous and couldn't speak at first. Lloyd thought that he was with Safiria, who was a former knight when she gathered her strength, and told the 2 soldiers that they were from guerrilla troops. They were notified of a disturbance in the library. Then they excuse themselves and start to walk, but the soldiers stop them again because they were on the wrong way, so the 2 guards let them. On their way, they have to think of a good excuse because guards started to ask them if they had heard about the intruders yet. They say that one of them is Lloyd, the magician with 1% material collection rate. Lloyd told them that it's not 1%, instead 40%. The guards ignored him and said that there were 2 holy knights traitors, the selfish berserker Safiria and the candy-brained gorilla Isolde. Those 2 are insanely strong, so they remind them to be careful. Those 2 traitors were the ones who drove the former saint mad. Then they show them a picture of Isolde and Safiria. It looks like Lloyd was with Iris and not Safiria, because she used her ice spear magic to strike the 2 guards. That surprised Lloyd since all the way he knew it was Safiria, but he was wrong. Anyway, soldiers report to the prince that soldiers were killed near the corridor. Ezekiel heard the news and found those soldiers useless. She forms an evil smile thinking that prison is home to much magic. They'll be cornered into a dead end. In her mind, she gave orders to those monsters to go and avenge their brothers. She thought Iris and her friends would be defeated, but she was wrong because Lloyd can handle monsters alone. In the prison, Isolde was surprised when prisoners called her name because it seems they were adventurers. They told her that they were imprisoned when they accepted a job near the border. They are all Malzerias, so it makes sense. They were capturing merchants and citizens too. They are doing whatever they like with them, sending them to dangerous areas to get killed by monsters. Iris was terrified, asking what the prince was doing. Lloyd immediately took out his item box and told them to go inside it. It's pretty crowded, so it might get cramped. Prisoners immediately followed their instructions and went inside. Isolde notices a strong door. She yells if someone is inside. When no one answered, she hardly kicked the door for it to be able to open. They were shocked when they saw a poor child being tied up. They hurriedly untied the child and treated her immediately because she was almost dead. Lloyd notices that the child has a great magical reserve. Seems like she is a magician from another country who was captured. Iris burst into tears when she saw that they tortured even the children. She blamed herself for letting that thing happen. Lloyd comforted her and said that he really didn't know what the prince was doing. But if they let the prince continue his wrongdoings, more people will suffer. Furthermore, soldiers caught them along with some monster. Lloyd's group were now surrounded, so Isolde used her wind magic and told everyone that they are almost near the cathedral, so they will run in the opposite direction to distract them. Iris reminds them to be careful, then he asks Lloyd to show the prince some extraordinary plant magic. However, inside the cathedral, Ezekiel seems furious while watching how her monster is easily beaten by Iris and her companion. She apologizes to the prince because they get through the cathedral. Prince assumes that they are a talented bunch, but he confidently said that they have the Roland army's strongest unit, aside from the Holy Flame Knights protecting them. The bridge that leads to the cathedral is wide open to ranged attacks. Not even a mouse can pass through that formation. No matter who it is, they won't get past. But his jaw drops and his smile fades when he sees that his soldiers have been attacked by vines. Not just the soldiers, but the entire cathedral has been tangled in vines. Then behind the smoke, Iris along with Lloyd and the others showed up. She asked the prince, who looked terrified upon seeing her, to come with them. These refuse and claim that what they're doing is just self-righteousness, and what Iris doing is disrupting the power among humans, giving the demons the upper hand. Iris interrupts because what the prince said is all false. The truth is, he was worried that things won't go the way he planned. They're there to protect people since that's the duty of a saint, the ideal she was striving to be. Iris threatens them that if he wants to rule the kingdom, they have to beat them all. On the other hand, Ezekiel looks furious at Iris and attacks her. Luckily, Lloyd sensed it, so he quickly put a barrier around them to avoid the attack. Ezekiel grants their wish that she will defeat them all. Geese was furious when he saw Iris was with dangerous mage Lloyd. Iris ignored him and told Lloyd that he was the prince that he needed to capture. Ezekiel was wearing the same clothes as Iris and called her a fake saint. She stated that Lloyd put on quite a performance, but she has to deal with those who stand out. She immediately released her Delta Stream, the strongest type of wind magic. Lloyd hurriedly uses his force shield to protect Iris. All the guards who's tangled with the vines were all swept away. When someone shouts, Isolde and Safiria look out, that the cathedral was in a catastrophe. Vines are ripping and it's starting to lean over. Some call their gods out of fear and dread. Geese laughs at them, boasting that it's Ezekiel's power that even Lloyd won't stand a chance. But Ezekiel widens her eyes when she notices that Lloyd and Iris were not damaged. It's Lloyd's turn, so he uses his cyclone to make a counterattack, and it looks like Ezekiel was impressed by his power. So she rushed towards him, but Lloyd quickly used his physical enhancement to dodge her attack. Dees, on the other hand, noticed that Iris was already at his back, who uses her ice spear, but he hurriedly turns and uses his fireball to counterattack. He was shocked because he thought Iris really actually came to kill him. But he was wrong because Iris won't kill him instead. He will come with her. Geese was stubborn, so he leaves Iris no choice but to use her water bullet, then release her water dragon to capture him. As Iris expected, the magic that she uses is very exhausting. It seems she will not be able to use it again if Geese doesn't give up. The latter was crawling, asking where did Iris learn such magic. He was frustrated when Iris told him that she learned it from Lloyd because she always listens to the latter, but she never listened to anything he had said. Geese remember when she was about to become a saint, she promised that she would devote her souls to her divine duty. She will also protect the weak, bring justice and peace, and cleanse the land of deception and evil. The retired king said that she is a suitable partner for Roland to rule the theocratic nation. She even hires Turaru to take care of her daily needs and Safiria, who was always hungry. She also hired Nero as a cook because she wants everyone to be able to eat delicious food similar to what her mother made back in her hometown. All of that irritated the prince because Iris didn't know anything. Just a clueless brat. Yet somehow she was praised by those around her, and now she fights against him. Lloyd suddenly turns to look at Iris when he learns that is the reason why Nero joined them. He failed to notice that Ezekiel attacked him. Anyway, Gee's stories no longer matter, but the latter claimed that she was always ignorant. Back then, they went to purify a temple frontier. There she saw Safiria, who was a knight, looking beaten. She was thankful for protecting the place. Geese interrupts her and says that it's her duty as a holy knight, and if he addresses all her duties, there would be no end. Then Safiria immediately left them and went to another location. He was furious back then because the cost of the carriage and escort that Iris arranged seemed huge. For someone who is a saint, Geese claimed that she has no self-awareness because the world is being invaded by demons. He lost his father to them. He wants her help to increase their territory so they can unite under a stronger nation and protect everyone. Iris cut him off because what Geese meant was he intended to annex other nations. He would only divide them if they start fighting at each other. They are not different from the demons. Geese became furious, claiming she didn't know the responsibilities of leading the nation, and a little naive girl then attacked Iris. As a result, she was thrown up. Lloyd was worried about her. It seems Iris still has strength to stand up. That's why they were shocked when she released and attacked the prince with her water dragon to capture him. She immediately calls the attention of Lloyd to put the prince in his item box. The latter immediately uses his super physical enhancement to avoid Ezekiel, who was rushing towards him. Then he took out his item box and put the prince inside it. They were both delighted when he finally did it. They rush towards each other, but when they are an inch away, they both stop and seem shy, finding the right words to say. Out of the blue, the saint suddenly bent down and covered her face. She apologizes to Lloyd for seeing her in such an embarrassing state. To her surprise, Lloyd holds her hand that covers her face. Then being told that seeing her isn't always perfect makes him feel relieved. Then Lloyd helped her to stand up. On the other hand, the Black Crow and Ruby look like they managed to gather all the materials, but the latter had a bad feeling about those materials. They noticed that something was following them, so they turned to see what it is. They were both stunned when they learned it was a huge monster. Ruby suddenly jumps in fear and embraces the Black Crow. She asked the Black Crow to kill it but didn't know how. The two, are they going to make it to Roland or not? Ezekiel was frustrated because she underestimated Lloyd. She can't win in her current condition. She peeks at them when she notices that Lloyd's item box burst. The water dragon must have pushed its limit. She saw that the prince was also caught. Then her previous prisoner suddenly went out of the item box. She already called the spare monsters as backup because she needed to get out of the place. Then her eyes widened when she saw the child taking care of Iris. She rushed towards them and told them to give her the child. She claims that she's done with the prince, but the girl is a different matter. She threatened them that if they value their life, they should hand her the child. Iris refuses because she will never yield a defensive child to someone like her. Ezekiel was irate because the two just make things difficult. She didn't want to use her power, but they left her no choice. She slowly parted her hair, then her horn became visible and slowly lengthened. Iris and Lloyd were surprised by the sudden changes of her appearance. They can't believe that she was actually a demon. The prince takes a peek inside the item box. He too was surprised because he always saw her as the ideal saintess. Anyway, Ezekiel immediately rushed towards the two, so Lloyd asked the saint to step back. Then Ezekiel gathers her power and throws it to Lloyd, who seems scared while holding tightly at his staff. Her power created a massive explosion in the area. Luckily, Lloyd still stood up. Iris finds her power an impossible one since magic is on par with Lloyd. The latter saw how incredibly strong she was. Ezekiel was not yet finished and rushed towards Lloyd again, but the latter used his staff to avoid it. They were face to face and no one wanted to be defeated. Another explosion was created. They are still throwing magic power towards each other. When they stop, Iris notices that they are on a whole different level. Ezekiel asks Lloyd what kind of training he went through because he was very strong for a mere human. She was confused when the latter simply told her that he collected materials. So Lloyd explains that he trains in uncharted territories like the White Sand Dunes and so on. Ezekiel asks him if he was serious because it seems she was delighted since she's been also practicing there for a long time. She also added that she never thought that there's someone else who ventured into that place and made it out alive. Iris, on the other hand, was bewildered because the two seemed friends that were having a conversation, but she can't figure out the topic. Anyway, when Lloyd asked her why she was training in such a dangerous place, she explained that she was the very first subordinate of the Demon Lord. The latter always told her that she needed overwhelming power to win against courage, yet she was still weak in the eyes of the Demon Lord, so she was sent in the White Dunes to train for 1,000 years. She refuses since the place is so dangerous that even veteran warriors can't survive there for more than a couple of days. But the Demon Lord just told her that's not an order, instead, it was her fate. Day after day, she was scorched in that hell place and barely survived by the skin of her teeth. Lloyd widens his eyes and claims that they are the same. Being forced to go there time and time again was purely hell, so it must have been tough for Ezekiel since she spent 1,000 years over there. The latter seemed excited because there was someone who could understand her pain. Because as she went along eating the flesh of monsters, her hate for the Demon Lord grew stronger and stronger. She asks herself what she does to deserve such treatment. She promised herself to wait. She will surely get revenge against the Demon Lord. When she finished the 1,000 years of training, the greatest honor to fight alongside the Demon Lord in the front line was granted to her. But the loyalty that she once held for the Demon Lord had long been wilted away. After weakening from fighting the hero, Ezekiel dealt her a blow from behind which sedated her and captured her. Furthermore, Iris interrupts and says that according to the story, the Demon Lord suffered a deep injury and is waiting for her moment to return. She was shocked when Ezekiel told her that the child that she was holding is none other than the shadow of the Demon Lord. But it looks like Iris refuses to believe her words. So Ezekiel also told them that she's been hiding among the humans, waiting for her chance. She went as far as to control monsters and trick the prince. She even impersonated Roland's saintess. Iris interrupts her again and asks her why she feels the need to fill that role since destroying humans is a Demon Lord's duty. Ezekiel exclaimed that she was the one who would surpass the Demon Lord. That's how she will take her revenge. According to her, that victory won't be executed through the power that she so longed for but by putting scheme over scheme and controlling things from the shadows. She thoroughly denied the Demon Lord's existence. On the other hand, Lloyd was surprised and told that it was amazing. But tricking the prince just to fulfill her revenge ruined the lives of the people of Minerva and Roland, even Iris, and the innocent citizens. Using Ruby to get materials for her plan. Those, however, are not things he can abide by. Ezekiel hopes that he understands her motives, but he threw a wrench into her plans. It seems she needed to resolve things by force even if she didn't want to. She will make sure her plans will come true in the next country after she buries them all. Ruby and Black Crow observe that the Roland is now overgrown, so they are bewildered at what is going on. They can't let their guards down until they make it back home. The monster targeted her first, so she asked the Black Crow to beat it using his clone or something. The Black Crow looks like he can't because even if he did, the monster's brother would finish them off. Black Crow suggests returning all the materials that they gathered, but Ruby refuses to do it. On the other hand, Lloyd blocks his own body against Ezekiel and her monsters because he can't let her continue her wrongdoings. Also, he can't hand the child over to the Demon Lord. So Ezekiel commands the two monsters to focus their attacks on Lloyd because if he was down, no one will be able to stop them. She also told them that she can regenerate as much as she likes as the Demon Lord, so they better give up. Then Lloyd uses his protection magic as a defense when the two monsters attack them. Isolde and Safiria saw everything, but they don't have any ability to defeat the demon. Anyway, Ezekiel observes that Lloyd's shield seems to have broken. She assumes that she will win against Lloyd, but her jaw drops when she sees Lloyd still standing and uses his explosion 16 times, a shield large enough to protect the entire cathedral. It's not possible considering his 10 years of experience. So Ezekiel guessed it wouldn't be easy for her to defeat him, so he made a gesture to the monster and struck him again. Then Iris shouted at Lloyd that the monster was behind him. The latter was prepared and used his protection magic but didn't notice that there's one on his back. So Iris immediately uses her ice spear to help him. Ezekiel seems to be having fun at her opponent. She even added her familiarity in the fight. So Lloyd has to step back. She asks the latter if his situation reminds him of the sand dunes. So Lloyd looked at those monsters in front of him. On the other hand, Isolde was worried about what kind of monster Lloyd was fighting against since the scale of the magic is high-level magic. Soldiers who were yelling for help rushed towards them to survive because Ezekiel's familiar were wreaking havoc. She saw a huge monster, so she used her flashed blade to save the other soldiers. But her blade seems not enough because it has a high magic defense. She asks Safiria's help to show them the fruits of their secret training, being a holy knight. Then they simultaneously strike using their double-fang sword technique. But before they succeeded, Safiria slipped off and her face almost hit her but then fell on the ground. She was always like that, so Isolde asked her to do it like what they trained. Safiria stood up and told her that she smelled of such sweet candy that distracted her. Isolde was astonished because she hadn't baked anything in a week. She asks how she can get anything done if she needs to eat all the time. When Safiria told her that Nero always cooks for her after the battle, she promises that she will make her a huge cake after the fight. Her words ring a bell at Safiria, so they immediately use their double-fang sword technique bulkage combo and strike monsters. Some soldiers were cheering for them, claiming that they're not just sweet-toothed gorillas. Isolde cursed at them when she heard their words. She also commands them to pick up their swords and fight if they are a holy knight. Furthermore, Ezekiel noticed that one of her monsters was defeated by humans. Lloyd assumes that it must be Isolde and Safiria. Ezekiel now was aiming for Iris, who seems exhausted and can't use her water dragon. She commands her familiar and strikes Iris. Luckily, before the monster could do any harm at her, an arrow hit the monster on its head. Both Iris and Lloyd were confused where it came from. There was a large balloon with 2 pairs of feet. The 3 were waiting to reveal themselves. One of the monsters blew the balloon with fire so it rolled in the ground. Then Lyra and Mars came out from the balloon. According to them, they snuck out into Lloyd's item box when he was leaving Minerva. They were just trying to get out of the item box, but more and more people were coming down, so they barely had enough time to get out. They are not the only one who wants to help. Even the adventurers from the guild were there to protect Iris because they were once saved by Iris from Isolde. The latter was delighted when she saw them. Ezekiel was not bothered by the presence of the adventurers and with his friends since they are just small fry. Little did she know that those small fry could actually beat her familiar. The double-fanged sword of Isolde and Sapphiria surprised Ezekiel because the two were able to keep pace against her monster. When the two jump high, Lloyd calls Isolde and says that he will hold back Ezekiel and strike them together. They all agreed with him, so Ezekiel ordered her monster to surround her and protect her. Iris along with the others simultaneously strike the monster. Even the adventurers risk their lives and use their swords. Ezekiel seems bewildered by the situation that she failed to notice Lloyd was already at her back, claiming that he was not the same as when he was wandering those dunes, because now he has friends who will fight with him. Then she used his focused explosion and strike every single familiar Ezekiel had. She was infuriated because her enemy has the upper hand, but she can't just walk away from the battle. She didn't know what to do since most of her minions were dead. She was terrified as 1,000 years ago. Her situation seems not different from the former demon lord. Then he suddenly froze when someone shouted at their back. It was Ruby and the Black Crow who seemed to be riding on the monster. Then an evil smile forms on her face. It looks like Ruby and Lloyd will reunite in such situations. They were both surprised when their eyes met. Ruby asks Lloyd what he is doing in Roland and where he has been all the time. She even accuses Lloyd of ditching all of the Eight-Layer's guests. Tears wanted to run down her face when she admitted to Lloyd that her life had completely turned upside down ever since he left the Eight-Layer. But she suddenly stopped when Ezekiel took their bag that had material. Their jaws literally dropped because it was an alchemy cauldron that Ezekiel was holding. The latter think of using it as a means of travel for the sake of subjugating other countries. Isolde and Sapphiria noticed that Ezekiel was going to forge something with it. They have to do something. So they rushed towards Ezekiel, but before they could get close to her, she used her remaining monster to protect her. Then she wears an alchemy item, the dimensional transfer crown. Isolde and Sapphiria yell at them to move aside and were about to attack Ezekiel, but she vanished. They were all confused where she was. Then, Lloyd noticed something unusual on the circle teleportation, so she asked everyone to get away from it. The teleportation magic circle that's similar to the one that they use in the Eight-Layer. It means Ezekiel had escaped somewhere. One of the adventurers called their attention to look out at something. They were bewildered if Ezekiel summoned another monster. Lloyd replied that it was not a monster. According to Lloyd, it sucked up all of the mana of the monsters that disappeared. When one activates multiple teleportation circles at once, they will all converge. In other words, Ezekiel had converged together with the monsters. They were terrified when Ezekiel showed her true face. She told Lloyd that she's been had by him and made friends with those peace-addled humans. The latter claimed that they saved him when she was captured by Ruby, so he told her not to speak badly at them. Ezekiel told him to shut up because she was sick of hearing his weakling ramblings. She asks them to look at how hideous she looks. Fighting with that body is the embodiment of power. That is her way of taking revenge against an albatross who wanted to make the world bend to her by power. Lloyd completely shattered her beliefs, so he needed to take responsibility for that and disappeared. Then she immediately attacked, but Lloyd quickly took his staff and created a force shield. But it looks like his shield is not going to hold out. So he asked for their forgiveness because Ezekiel was on a whole different level. He was not able to defeat her with his magic. Iris refuses to accept his apology, then stands beside him to help him to fight. Ezekiel noticed that she used her holy magic, but it was as weak as a slight breeze. According to Iris, her holy magic might not affect Ezekiel, but it should be enough to weaken the monsters that she converged with. Lloyd seems to have an idea. He asks her about the location of the Temple of Roland. Iris replied that it was beyond the towering mountain range. Lloyd thinks he can reach it, so he asks everyone to give him 5 seconds so he can dispel the shield and launch a counterattack. Isolde and the others agree, so he immediately dispelled his shield. Ezekiel thought it was a surprise attack through a smoke. When Sapphiria and Isolde rush towards her, she counterattacks them before they could strike. But her eyes widen when Isolde calls Lloyd to do his plan. The latter used his inspiring vines to get Roland's temple and threw that whole temple on Ezekiel. She carries Iris and uses his physical enhancement and goes inside the temple. They landed on the teleportation magic at the center of the temple. Then he put down Iris and asked her to do it. Iris wanted to settle the score once and for all, so she knelt on the ground and started to do the work while Lloyd was on her back. She releases a massive amount of light and calls Lloyd to do his turn. When Ezekiel was about to crash the temple where they are, so Lloyd created a massive explosion to strike her and be separate from the monster that she converged on. It was a success since they were both still alive although very close to death. He was surprised when Iris suddenly rushed towards him and held him close to her. Tears ran down her face while thanking him for fighting by her side and helping her to protect her people. Lloyd seems content and happy at that moment. But Ezekiel hasn't lost yet. She promised to make a teleportation circle once again. She was crawling on the ground trying to reach the crown. She can touch it but she can't wear it all by herself since her arms were cut. Then Ruby and Black Crow appear. It seems like the ultimate battle between Ruby and Ezekiel is something that was bound to happen eventually. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy this manga. Have a good day.